Come on, go ahead.
Do I start?
Yes, yes.
When I was 6 years old, my family moved to a little house in Tokyo near Shiba train station. At first, the train frightened me, but after
Frightened,
a while,
frightened me, frightened me.
I grew to frightened me.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, I grew to enjoy the power of the furious,
Furious.
furious noises they made. Furious noise they made. One day, I begged Mama to take me to meet Papa as he came home on the afternoon train. She laughed and said, "Kentario, you have become big and brave, just like the Asumria."
A samurai.
Together we
Samurai.
walked to the station. It was a samurai. Together we walked to the station. It was spring, and the day was clear and cold. There were tiny carts all around the station, selling snacks, newspaper, and hundreds of other things to the crowds of people rushing by. Ladies in kimonos
Kimonos.
walked carefully, kimonos walked carefully, trying to keep their white tabby socks away from the grim of the street.
Excellent.
Strode
Business.
about businessmen
Uh-huh.
strode about, hurrying home or to catch another train. Mom and I had stopped near the station entrance when I noticed the dog.
Excellent reading,
He
Yelene.
was sitting
That's enough.
quietly.
That's enough. Thank you so much, Yelene. Great job. Okay, Lean. Very good reading, and your reading is smooth, and you stopped on the full stop, which is amazing. And you have few mistakes in spelling. You have um, you have the word frightened, and you had the word samurai and the word businessman, but otherwise all of your reading is correct. Excellent, yeah, Lean.
Miss,
Okay.
what are our marks?
The marks. Lean, you got five. You got 4.5 out of 5. Malak, you got 4.5 out of 5, and Watin, you got 5 out of 5. How I counted, every 3 mistakes, you will be minus half. Okay? Every spelling mistake, 3 spelling mistakes, or tone mistakes, or pause mistakes, you will lose half mark. So you lost half mark, both of you, Malak and Lean. But next time, inshallah, I'm sure that you will gain 5 out of 5. Okay, my girls. Let's go right now for the story. Stones, bones, and petroglyphs. Petroglyphs. Now, we remember that this story is expository text, which means that it explains information about what? About the facts and about things that we don't know. This time, they are explaining about what? About ecology and about how people they are trying to dig from other civilizations and cultures to discover some of their remains and ruins, and we can learn about these ancient people who lived before us. Today we have the ancient place of the Native Americans who lived in America before a long time ago. And those people, as we said before, they were living on the hills and on the mesas, and suddenly they changed their living to live inside what? Inside alcoves and inside mountains. Inside mountains. Are you writing anything, ya Aline?
Yeah.
Are you writing anything?
No.
Okay, then it's the voice of the air. Please make it low or mute yourself. You too, Yawatin.
Okay.
Okay, then they changed their places from the hills and from the high places to live inside the mountain, inside alcoves. Why they lived in there? This is what the scientists trying to what? To discover the information about. And to discover this information, they had some group of students. They came from high school to help them to dig about that history. Now, while they are digging, they are trying to teach the children how to dig and what to search about and what to focus about. Whenever the children or the students find anything, they prevent them from taking those things in their pockets or hiding it or changing its place, because if you change the place, we might after that we can't find the other things that is hidden in that place. So you have to make everything in its own place and don't change it or remove it from that place. Okay? And then everything that they take it carefully and they try to remove all the dust from it and to examine it to understand what happened at that era, how the people lived, what kind of food they have, what kind of animals, and then we can have some glance about their lives at that time. So go to the page 271. 270 or just a minute, let me check. Which page, Watin?
Miss, page 248.
248. Thank you, Watin.
Yeah.
So go for the
Oh,
page
no.
240.
No, Miss, sorry. It's for the. It's wait. It's 100. Wait. Yeah,
47.
246.
Yes.
247.
We done this right now and we are going to complete this one.
Have we seen any bones from cows and horses, the type of animals that eat hay? Asked Ken. No, Joe admitted. Then why did they make a design that looked like a pitchfork? Well, that does look like a pitchfork to us, said Ken. One problem archaeologists have is we're looking at another culture with ideas formed by our own. We're influenced by the things we know and the things we believe. We can't be certain these people were thinking the same way. Luckily, scientists have another way to learn about the ancient Pueblo world. The people who left the Four Corners in the late 1200s joined up with other Pueblo groups. What some people see as archaeology is family history for many of today's Pueblo tribes. Understanding how current Pueblo people live can provide a window into the past. By looking at how today's Hopi and Zuni people weave, for example, researchers learned that the loops on kiva walls held looms. Forgetting pots and hammer stones for a moment, Bill wondered what future scientists would say about the artifacts in his bedroom. People from 700 years ago look so primitive to us, he said. Future archaeologists might think the same about us. Still, I think they'd be amazed by my stereo. We're trying to figure out how many people lived in Woods Canyon and how they related to other people nearby, said Ken. We need to find artifacts to answer these questions. So your work is really necessary.
Okay, right now they found what? They found a pitchfork. Pitchfork is used usually for what? For farmings and for the farmers who are trying to what? To collect the hays and to collect the bushes together to make piles of hays. Now the boys during this campaign of searching, they are asking, those people they had animals to feed? Well, we don't know that yet because we didn't find any bones of animals at that situation and that place. But maybe it's that pitchfork. It's not in the first place for farming or for haze. Maybe they are using it for something else. Because one of the problem that we are facing it as archaeologists when we want to dig in the station of other people is that we look to their civilization as we look to ours. For example, if I see a pitchfork, then I would say, oh, it's for haze. But maybe, what I don't know, that maybe they used it for something else than I use it right now. Because our time is different, right? So maybe right now, this plate, I would not use it to eat, but at their time, it was something common to eat in a plate like this. Maybe this kind of a spoon, I would never eat in something like this, but in their time, it was something common. So also the pitchfork that they had, maybe they used it for something else other than the thing that I know. So it's different from one place to another. But luckily, the scientists, they have a theory about why those people, they left the higher places and the mesas and the hills to live inside the alcoves. And they said maybe what they wanted to do is to gather with other and unite with other Pueblo groups. So maybe they wanted to make a bigger group so they can protect themselves from other people. Then they wanted to collect more people from their own group to have bigger family. Okay, so maybe they gathered with different families in that alcoves. Okay, in those alcoves. That's why they hide in there and they lived in there for some time, for some decades, maybe. But let's see different idea about it. Is it the same thinking that we have or something else?
Chapter 4. Digging into the Past. The kids were ready to dig. They had studied all kinds of artifacts, from necklaces to cooking pots. They now knew that important clues could be easily overlooked. What first seemed like a regular rock with one smooth side, for example, could really be a grinding stone that had been flattened by crushing corn. Back in the lab, the kids had also learned how to dig archaeologist style. They had marked off an area and carefully used trowels to skim off thin layers of dirt. This dirt went into buckets to be screened or sifted for tiny treasures like nuggets of charcoal and pottery beads. If the kids had found a larger artifact, they removed all the dirt around it first. Once they saw that nothing else was nearby, they could pick it up. In the canyon, the kids split into groups and followed different archaeologists to test pits around the site. In archaeologist Mark Varian's group, one boy said he had thought the whole village would be excavated. Mark explained that just uncovering small sections leaves untouched areas for future scientists to make new discoveries with better technology. This is harder than I expected, Tyler said, scraping at dirt that had been packed down for 700 years. It is hard, said Ben Kay. It's worth it, though. I found a potsherd and a fragment of animal bone. Meanwhile, in archaeologist Melissa Churchill's area, kids were digging in a midden, or trash heap. Ancient garbage is an archaeologist's treasure chest. Think of how much someone could learn about your life from the pizza box, ripped jeans, and old telephone bill in your trash can. Broken pottery and tools and worn-out clothing help archaeologists learn about daily life in ancient times. Chapter 5. Trying out the old ways. Digging up artifacts isn't the only way archaeologists learn about the past. Learning about past cultures includes knowing how they did things. That's why archaeologists at Crow Canyon built a pit house, the type of home the ancestral Puebloans made around AD 700. Kids helped the archaeologists make their pit house by using ancient building techniques. After a lot of tired muscles and sore backs, they had even more reason to appreciate prehistoric people. Imagine using a stick and a basket to remove 3 feet of dirt, said Sarah to the kids as they sat inside the pit house. Think about cutting down all the trees you'd need to build this thing. It takes about an hour just to cut through an inch of trunk with a stone axe. And it took several truckloads of willow to weave between beams to make the walls, she continued. That's a lot of arm loads when you don't have a pickup. Testing old methods provides many insights about how and why things were done. Archaeologists used to think, for example, that ancient people burned the tops of wooden beams to cut them. Once they tried it themselves, scientists realized that charred beams keep out termites. The fancy name for trying out ancient ways is experimental archaeology. Doing a little experimental archaeology themselves, the kids performed some daily chores of the ancient Pueblo world. It made me realize how hard they worked, said Aaron, and it made other kids realize how hard the work was.
Nice. You see now the kids right here of the school, they are sitting with the archaeologists and they are trying to imagine how the lives were for those people. And they tried to build a new house like this one, but they couldn't. Why? Because it took them a long time and a tired muscles just to build a small type and a small part of that house. So imagine the bigger picture of those people, the ancient people who lived in there and who made the whole city out of houses like this. How they built those houses? They built them out of logs of trees and mud. So imagine that you go to the forest and cut hundreds of trees and try just to cut them into little pieces and logs and sticks, and then come here and put it in the right place and put some small holes in it so you can put another stick in that place. So the whole situation and the whole process, it will take a long, long, long time. Only to cut one tree, it will take you more than 1 hour. So imagine if you are building a house, all of those trees and all of those mud, how much time it will take you and how much effort it will take you. So those people, the ancient people who lived in here, they weren't normal people. They were people with a lot of muscles and a lot of power, and they had more time than us to do all these things, and it was very tiring. Also, the archaeologists, when they search about other people who lived before us, they are interested in their what? Who can tell me? In their garbage. And they consider it actually the garbage of the ancient people is a treasure right here. Why is it a treasure? Because from their garbage, they can understand what they ate, what kind of clothes they wear, because you can find torn clothes inside the garbage. You can find some remain of food inside your garbage, like, for example, remains of corn, remain of bread, remain of meat, maybe bones, something. Then we will understand what did you eat. If I found remaining of your clothes, I understand what type of clothes you like to wear. If I found remaining of plastic, I know that you are a person who likes to eat in plastic boxes or to use, for example, plastic water bottles. So there's a lot of things that I can know from your garbage, and it can tell me about your lifestyle. What are the things that you like? What are the things that you don't like? And what are the things that you care about the most? So, for any people, garbage of other people is sometimes could be considered as a treasure because it can give you some major information about those people. Any question until now? Do you think it's interesting to be archaeologists?
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes, me too. I feel it's so
Interesting if you
interesting.
be uh, like an experimenting archaeologist.
Yes, exactly. And imagine that if you was one of those students in that trip, and instead of going to Kidzania, for example, we are going just to one site like this to search and dig inside the dirt to discover what happened to those
Yeah.
people. Well,
It's so
that would be
interesting, actually.
amazing. That would be amazing, really. طيب, let me open from here.
Yeah, Miss, can you show us how they do this? How they do this?
Just a minute.
Like,
Petro. So. Okay, and we can also like this one. like this one. Okay. The first one we will see is this one.
Back in 2008, a group of archaeologists discovered a small clay pot buried on a First Nation Menominee reservation. As the excavators carefully brushed away the object's covering of earth, they had no idea of its value. 7 years later, however, their find literally yielded extraordinary fruit, and it became an internet sensation. Of course, First Nations land often conceal all kinds of interesting art.
You see, those right here, those pictures are real, and those pictures are for cities, for the ancient people who lived before us many years ago and thousands of years ago. This one, I think it's in India. So let's see together.
Archaeological artifacts, arrowheads, ceramics, jewelry, textiles, and utensils, to name a few.
So imagine that, imagine this city is full with people and full with the children right here playing and animals just walking. So imagine how it was since many years ago, and now how it became just ash.
Textiles and utensils, to name a few. From a historical perspective,
Those are some of the weapons that they discovered together. You see? This thing that they used it for the horses, this thing that they use it to cut something, or maybe it's a part of a sword or something. And this thing, they put it in the mouth of the horse. Okay. What? A knife.
The big one.
This one is like a knife or a sword, yes. So all of these tools, they have it. They have some tools made of metal and made of iron. Okay, and this is some pottery right here. And here how they dig. This is
wider flows of
archaeologists.
migration, and who lived where, how, and when. However, the Menominee pot was supposedly much more of a living history than a dead historical record.
You see how hard to dig the history? They have to dig so slowly and carefully, not to hit the treasure inside, not to hit the pots or the gold or anything. So they are doing it so closely and carefully, not to hit anything. And they do it sometimes inside rocks, sometimes inside the stone like this, sometimes inside mountains,
But if they
sometimes
do it inside the
dirt.
rock, it have to be very hard.
Yes, very hard and very carefully, actually.
Yeah.
The pot was apparently about the size of a tennis ball. It was small, clean, and unassuming, with a large crack in its side. Nothing indicated that it was exceptional. That is, until the archaeologists reportedly lifted its lid and saw its contents. Inside the pot was allegedly a number of squash seeds from a species thought to have been extinct. Squash, along with maize and beans, was one of the three sisters that formed the staple diet of early Americans, including.
You see, from this small stone right here, and from that area that you saw right now, they opened that thing and they found a small seed of squash and beans, and they discovered the diet and the food that the ancient people they used to eat hundreds of years ago. They were using food like us, like squash, beans, some type of potatoes, corn. So they were eating mostly similar diets to us and similar food to us. So that give us a glance about their food. So this is how we discovered from a small part, maybe from a small fruit, maybe it's reserved inside the stone for a long time. So that's why it's very important to be archaeologist and to be a careful archaeologist, because the evidence could be hidden anywhere beside you and you didn't notice. Something else, let me show you another video. It's very interesting. This is the remaining of one person. They found it inside the digging right here. They found a whole skeleton, yani a whole person died in here, and this is his remains. So these are some of the bones, weapons, and this is how they found the people right here. The remaining of some people. So interesting, because without the archaeologists, you wouldn't understand their places and you wouldn't know that there were some people dead in here. This is some students right here are helping the archaeologists to dig a place and to search inside it for evidence also. They are searching for Native Americans artifacts.
We believe may date to around 1,500 years ago, around 500 AD or so. We do know it is indeed an archaeological site, a very good archaeological site, But we do not know the specifics of what culture and what time frame specifically we're talking about in regards to the kinds of artifacts we are finding.
This is part of pots and pottery.
Yourself. It's a lot better than just going in the classroom and learning how to do it, but not actually getting to physically do it.
You see, this girl, she has interesting idea. She said, I like it doing this way and have all of this effort and work to do it live and to do it by the experience and to touch it by your hand than sitting in the class and just learn about it. If you do it by yourself, then you will learn more and it will stuck in your mind because you touched it, you saw it, you felt the situation. So it's better than just read it inside a book. And she's right about that.
What he believed was a lost Native American city. 4 centuries old conquistador writings had been nomadic, following a band of 70 intriguing and now deserted city. The conquistadors decided to explore. Spending 2 or 3 days at the site, they found an urban settlement with some 2,000 dwellings, each designed for as many as 10 people. There were carefully tended garden plots where sunflowers, pumpkins, and corn grew. The conquistadors could see that more of the city's buildings located where the Walnut and Arkansas rivers join. But there were other pieces of evidence that indicated that this modern city might be sitting atop a much older settlement. The city, he postulates, would have
Okay, my girls, let's complete the story by just taking some more parts.
Poof! You've got fire. Sarah made it look easy, said Joe, but when me and Philip tried to start one, we couldn't even get smoke. Making pottery. Sarah demonstrated how ancient Puebloans formed coils into a bowl. Then she used a piece of gourd to scrape them smooth. The kids started making their own pots and bowls and ladles. My pot sort of looks like Mr. Potato Head without eyes or a mouth, said Aaron. But I think the Pueblo would be impressed if they saw us trying to learn their ways. I bet they didn't use a knife to cut off the tops of their mugs, said Brooke as she reached for one herself.
Now they are trying to make some pottery and to make some pots like the Native Americans. And when they tried to do that, it was so hard for them. You see, the nice thing about this trip, that even the archaeologists made those children just to try everything like the ancient people, to live the experience fully and to understand how was the life for those people.
They certainly didn't use steel ones, answered Sarah, but they had blades made from obsidian that were even sharper. Sometimes we're so proud of our own technology, we are blind to how advanced ancient cultures actually were. Bill learned to appreciate a potter's skill when he tried to paint a traditional design on his pot with a brush made from yucca leaves. Oops, he said as he made a mistake. I guess I'll make a stripe instead. Chapter 6. Visiting the Past. I find myself looking for potsherds everywhere, said Brett, even in this parking lot. Brett's parking lot was at Mesa Verde National Park, where the kids were spending the last day of their trip. Mesa Verde is a park created to preserve the works of prehistoric people. The location was a good choice. Mesa Verde has more than 4,000 archaeological sites, including 600 cliff dwellings. Visiting Mesa Verde was a perfect ending to the kids' week at Crow Canyon. It summed up much of what they learned about ancestral Puebloans. Fully excavated ruins helped them more clearly picture how villages were laid out. And after a week of study, they could look at a ruin and say, there's the kiva, or these rooms were used for storage. Mesa Verde was like a time machine, where the kids could visit a pit house built in AD 500, a rectangular village from AD 950, and finally, 13th century cliff dwellings. Moving from one to the other, the kids could see how society and people's individual life and but every kid agreed the climb was worth it. They admired the wall that kept them and ancient Puebloans from falling over the steep cliff. They peeked into rooms and thought of sleeping on beds of juniper bark and animal skins. They looked at kiva walls blackened by smoke and imagined spending cold winters by a fire. This house may not look like your house, but these people were like us, said Don Osicki, the park ranger who led their tour. No, they didn't have computers or vans. Yes, they spent long days planting and finding their food, but they also found time to do things they enjoyed. These buildings aren't just stone, Dawn continued. They were people's homes. Babies cried here. 2-year-olds broke their parents' best pots. Older children whined, "Do I have to grind corn now?" Young men and women were drawn to each other and made families, and became grandparents who passed stories on to new children. These people lived their lives with what they had and tried to do better, just like people today. We may never understand exactly why they built T-shaped doorways or why they left this area, but since we understand what it means to be human, we know the most important thing about them. Thinking over his week, Bill agreed with Dawn. My favorite part is that you realize that the Puebloans were human beings, not just things that are dead and gone. I have realized how important every little artifact is, said Jeannie. Each artifact can tell or complete a story. Before this week, I probably could have cared less who bothered what artifact, but now I do. This was a
Okay, my girls, this is the end of our story for today. Now, the kids right here, they didn't just dig for history, they lived the experience that the other ancient countries and ancient people, they lived before us and how they had their life before us. How they planted, how they made their own plates and their own tools for their food and for the dishes, how they planted their own food, how they took care of their own animals, and the way that they lived inside different houses than the one that we are living here inside this time and this era. So they lived in that inside that era, and they experienced the whole situation and the whole life of those people. When those kids finished, they said, "We don't finish with the same idea and with the same mind we entered with. No, we had a different and a bigger idea of those people and the respect for those people who lived before us and how hard their work was, because none of their tasks or chores were easy. And now we are just sitting on the couch, checking our phones or reading a book or just wasting our times with nothing. But those people had everything to do with their times, and they had a great time. So now we are studying not only their history, but we are studying an era of history to for us to learn from it and to take some lessons from it to our life. And those people, those children, when they finish, they have some experience to how to make a pottery pots, how to make their own food, how to build their own houses. So they have some skills that they can use it for survival in the future. Would you like to have something like this, my girls? If you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that here in Saudi Arabia it's open for us to do that?
No.
good experience, said Christy.
I think there's similar experience we can have if we go for museum and see something of the ancient people before us.
we have in Jeddah museum, miss.
Yes, there's a museum, and inshallah I'm going to search for that and see if I can take you there. That would be my pleasure, because we can learn together,
Yay.
and I want you to see it by yourself. Okay, my girls, yalla, you have another class you have to go before the other teacher kill me.
No.